Next speaker is Tiffany St. James, who is a social media expert. She's a strategist, she's an advisor, and she's an international speaker. And I just found out she's on the she's the executive director of BEMA, but she was also the former head of the former government's. Is that right? No, just the former head of social media for the UK government. Tiffany is going to be talking about the social audience and the changing habits of social audience. Again, a lot of it's going to be about two-screen, I understand. So, Tiffany, welcome to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thanks, that's great. For all of my fellow exec directors of BEMA, there are a board of 18 of us. I am one of them, just because I know there's some people here in the audience today. So I wanted to mention that. I'm delighted to be able to share with you here today some content around how we might be able to socially engage audiences. Before I do, can I just have a show of hands? Who here runs a social engagement for TV programmes? Okay, a good few of you here, and a few familiar faces, so welcome again. I wanted to be able to build on some of the great things that Paul and Neil were saying and look at a bit more kind of practically about how to. For those of us who don't run social engagement for TV channels, here is some good practice, some good basic practice around social engagement of whether we might be managing brands and brand spaces as well as TV engagement. So I wanted to share with you some good homekeeping and hygiene factors, as well as some ideas and explorations that might be interesting in this space. So first of all, there's a debate raging at the moment about engaging TV audiences socially. Is it the new teenage sex? Because everyone's talking about it. There's some people who are really good at it and kind of showing off about it. And then most of us are just kind of working out, is that right and appropriate? And are we doing it? And is everyone doing it? So just a little a fun debate about that. But essentially, we're all at different stages of the adoption curve on that. And some of the larger, more interesting questions that programme makers and commissioners are trying to work out is, what do we do with social data when we perhaps collate it? How can we not only engage audiences, but take that information and apply it to many programmes across perhaps one channel? As well as perhaps looking at, okay, so in the last question we had from Paul, what really is the first or second screen, for example? And should we allow our audiences to depict which kind of digital platform that they would prefer to see some of our content on? So there's some larger questions about it, but essentially there's some kind of good basic homekeeping first. So, before you start any social engagement, TV or otherwise, to be really clear about your objectives. It sounds quite simple, but essentially look in terms of your business vision, your programme context. First of all, there is that question, is social TV right? Should you be engaging your audiences on social channels? Are they there to start with in the context of what the programme is covering? Set specific engagements. We're very used to doing it as communication strategists. Set engagement objectives specifically around your programme, and figure out what you're going to do with what you hear and how will you apply that, and how will social media, what will it do for you, what do you expect to do and learn with that information. So be really clear about your objectives. Many of you may own your own corporate social platforms or run the social platforms for different channels. Essentially, you want to be able to set those up beforehand for a particular programme, as well as be able to engage in sort of pre-screen promotion. So how are you going to talk about the programme on different social spaces before a programme is aired? You've got the opportunity to engage the talent, the celebrities, the main players, the key stars in any programme, to actually sit down with them, chat with them, talk about the key messages you want to get across about the programme's point of view, about actually your communication plan for the programme even before it's aired. What are the key highlights? When's the press release coming out? This is simple, practical, functional things that we can all do. Obviously, to be able to field individuals in a team in real-time engagement is, the major aspect of engaging while that program happens. And how can we think about rewarding and recognizing the super engaged fans, and perhaps in real time? So first of all, I guess, get your social house in order. Having the right people for the right job is absolutely critical. Not just within the individuals managing channels for you, but you've got the opportunity to get your production and your digital teams together to work and understand each other. They might say the same words, and in their different languages of which they operate, they can mean entirely different things. So when putting programs and content together, to be able to get those teams together in one place when setting social engagement strategies is absolutely key. Kind of consider what your audiences want. There's a push and pull here. You might have all of the platforms to engage, and your audience might want to talk about things differently on social platforms differently. So consider how you can find out what your audiences want. And dedicate the right skilled people. I had a great chat with Peter Cassidy from Fremantle this week at the BBC Fast Train event, and he said Britain's Got Talent, which is one of the shows that he manages, has 3 full-time staff on social engagement. He actually did say they work from 10 a.m. to midnight, and he wouldn't let them go on holiday. So, but be aware that you have to have dedicated right people trained to be able to handle that for you. And getting the right tools for the job. So we've seen an absolute wealth just in the last year, and perhaps even in the last 6 months, of social analytics tools and data tools. Here's a couple of neat examples of command centres, with the exception of the Nokia Social Agora that was launched in February. But different ways of being able to put together the right tools in the right space. You don't actually necessarily need a room for it, but you might need the capability rather than the facility. They might be just web-based tools that your teams have access to, that they know how to use, to be able to listen, to be able to monitor, and to be able to engage, and then to be able to get the social data analytics from the back end of that. So the right tools for the right job. So far so good. That's housekeeping, if you like. Dan Jones, who's the head of multi-platform at Maverick, shared a couple of examples with us. So I wanted to be able to share those as a kind of point of inspiration. This is quite an old one. It's Generation Kill, I think, as far back as 2010. So a program around our services, and they were mucking around with Twitter, in their own words. They were kind of investigating how it might be helpful and useful. So they started tweeting on the Generation Kill social account that they set up for it some explanation of the military terms that were used throughout the programme. So people got a richer or a deeper layer of understanding that will help them benefit when they're viewing the programme. We had a great example of the synced digital content. I think The Walking Dead was one that was used earlier. One of an earlier opportunities that Grey's Anatomy spotted and developed quite well is an interactive iPad app. It's free, people download it. The facility, as was mentioned earlier, it syncs with your microphone on your iPad, so it doesn't matter if you're watching it on Sky Plus and not in real time. You might have missed the social conversation, but you get played additional content at the time of the episode that in which you're watching. You've got the opportunity to take polls and quizzes, get some real-time results, and watch kind of interactive content for checking in at different places on the show and unlocking that. And have a look at what other fans say about the show. So just a great example of it well thought through. The great team at Maverick have also been playing around with actually allowing users real-time interaction. So they have historically done it on Embarrassing Bodies Live. They've turned the editorial over to the viewers, now sometimes called users, to enable them to either ask questions or upload images or vote on what they want discussed live on the programme. So allowing your audiences that flexibility to interact. They've taken that one step further with the latest iteration from Live from the Clinic. So they're taking live consultations on Skype. They're having an an opportunity to download an app and take some medical tests. They don't expect you to do anything more than perhaps take the results and be with your GP and not turn everyone into, doctors of their own conditions. But there's simple things like colour blindness, to be able to kind of download that app and take that test while it's live. And they've recently been looking at prostate cancer and breast checking and getting viewers to be able to kind of upload and engage. I didn't think all of those photos might be appropriate tonight, but it's something that they're doing at the moment. Who here is a Sherlock fan? Anyone see Sherlock Live? A great number of us. Okay, so who here watched the second series? Kind of almost half of us. Okay, so you may or may not remember this. In the second series of Sherlock, it was in the episode A Scandal in Belgravia. And Sherlock was trying to figure out the code for the safe. And Irene, the character, the dominatrix, said, "I'll tell you the code right now, but you know what? I already have." And Sherlock is trying to figure out what that code might be. And the opportunity that the UK audiences had were leaping on Twitter, trying to work out if they were smarter than Sherlock and talking about it in real time. So it's a nice, Mike actually refers them to as kind of narrative hooks in storytelling, Mike from PACT. And it's a great way, if you are commissioning or developing programs, to look at your content and the opportunity of this was kind of spontaneous interaction by an audience, but to be able to kind of capitalise on that and to do something with that, to either reward superfans, to run other competitions around it, because it was one of the times where actually he paused for an incredibly long time in TV viewing to be able to figure out what that code was, and people were spontaneously trying to interact it. So see where those narrative hooks might be in program making. The Super Bowl was touched on earlier as one of the great case studies. Coca-Cola and Wieden+Kennedy in Portland haven't released all of the stats from it yet. It's going to be one of the biggest social media cases this year. I'd like to just bring another aspect to it. So the W&K are the guys that gave us the biggest social media interactive campaign, Old Spice, last year. So the polar bears that was promoted, come and watch the game with us. We're sat out hanging this game. One of the interesting things that I felt about what sometimes is referred to now as event TV, is actually not only did the bears have their own hashtag, people were kind of taking photos of themselves, watching the bears, sending it in to the bears where the game was live. And one of them had a BlackBerry that it brought out, and the other one had an iPad that it brought out, and it was able to turn the iPad, and it was a screen takeover of the photo that the family sent in. Can you imagine during kind of Super Bowl weekend in February of this year, it set the world record for the tweets per second mentioned earlier, so 12,233. That's been broken since. In April, the Champions League, 13,648 tweets per second is the new world record. So, both held records and broken this year by soccer fans and sports fans and football fans. But that opportunity, can you imagine how that family must have felt during Super Bowl weekend to see their photo of the family on that third screen device and the bears sitting there watching it. So opportunities in events TV. So the last example that I'm going to leave you with is, and it's a 30-second video, and I'll play that in just a second. But essentially to let developers play with great content. We were fortunate enough this year, Rewired States, the largest independent developer network in the UK, were invited to MIPCube and MIPTV, a great conference in the south of France that many of you will know of, to bring 12 independent developers to hack social data and social TV data to create apps around social audience and social engagement. One of the issues that the developers found was that there wasn't actually enough great data from TV organisations and from broadcasters that they can make a lot of things with. So I guess one of the messages is, as TV producers, have the opportunity for your data to engage developers and create sandboxes. The fabulously named Cosmo Lush, who's head of digital at EMI, has recently relaunched a sandbox in the last 6 months that allows developers to play with music content, to be able to make different apps, to play with prototypes, to work around kind of research and development. So you've got the opportunity to have those walls within your business like osmosis and bring in different talent and get them to play with your content. I'll ask to play the video in just 1 second, but the one thought that I want to be able to kind of leave you with really is the $1 million question. How do we get brands and audiences and producers and developers talking? How can we get that talent all together to be able to create what audiences want to see, what serves advertisers, what serves producers and commissioners? So if you're able to, in your discussions later, I'd love to see where we get with that. So I'm just going to ask to play that 30-second video for me. The Boats That Hacked TV, an absolutely practical and useful application that Aral Balkan built in 36 hours that we then at MIP Live. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a little bit of basic housekeeping and thoughts and inspiration on social TV. Thanks for listening.